Hi everyone, and welcome to the Desteni I Process channel. We do hangouts here from the Desteni I Process channel on YouTube every Thursday, and we're continuing with our series on relationship success support that we're doing the first Thursday of every month with Cerise Pullman. Hi Cerise.
Hi.
And as always, you may please excuse us. We're having a bit of a lag here between South Africa and Sweden, so please bear with us as we get the connection going. In this hangout, we're going to be talking about loneliness and the fear of being alone. And I must say that this hangout is very timely, considering that the holiday season and especially Christmas and New Year's is known to be one of those times a year where most people experience loneliness and the fear of being alone. If you do have a question about loneliness, if you're out there feeling lonely, we encourage you to join the discussion. If you go through our Google Plus page, there you'll actually be able to ask a question here to Cerise and to me live on the Hangout, and we will give our perspective on it here as we go during the next 40 minutes. So definitely make sure to get your question in. If you do have a comment or another perspective on loneliness that you'd like to share, you're also more than welcome to post it there. The video will be recorded, and so after it's uploaded here from the live recording, you'll also be able to comment on our YouTube page. So Cerise, let's get into it. Can you share with us what is loneliness, and how do you see that loneliness is connected to the desire for a relationship?
Okay, so loneliness starts off with when you're a child, your family and the TV and your storybooks. Everything that you come into contact with in the world is telling you that you should be in a relationship when you grow old. You should get married, you should have children, you should have the white picket fence, and that is basically what life is about. That is the best possible outcome that you can have. Further to that, you've got the fairy tales that we tell our children about how there's a knight in shining armor coming to rescue the damsel in distress, and they live happily ever after. And I mean, that becomes a big part of a child's upbringing, that belief that you should want a relationship, you should want to either be rescued or do the rescuing, and then live happily ever after, as if it's that simple, which it never is. So loneliness is basically, it comes from a belief that we're taught that you should be in a relationship, you should create a connection with someone and share your life with someone, and that not doing so is a taboo. Basically, it's not generally socially accepted.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I've been looking at this point as well of how parents and adults in general don't really seem to realize the effect that these fairy tales and Disney movies have on children, but also that one of the reasons why it has such an effect is that it's kind of in those early years, it's the only information about the world that we have access to. You know, very few people talk about, so this is a relationship, or the parents sharing their own experiences with relationships, for example. So you get quite a delusional perspective, a very like idealized and romantic perspective on what relationships are, and then you have this, like you said, this and they lived happily ever after part, you know, that it's a very short story, and then the rest of the story is just out of the picture, and you never actually learn something about relationships for real. But then in this,
yeah, exactly,
in the creation of the experience of loneliness, what is it that goes on within our minds when we start feeling lonely, and this becomes a part of our experience of ourselves?
Well, there are a few dimensions to loneliness, a few ways that it can manifest. But one aspect of it that I would say is common across any kind of loneliness is that it is in fact a form of self-sabotage, because basically what you're doing is you're thinking about what you want in life, the partner you want, the life you want to create, or the friends you want to make, or whatever, the connections that you want to form, and you're starting to think about, I want that, I don't have it, I need it, but I am lacking it. It's not what is in my life. Your experience around that becomes one of lack, of I don't have it. And when you're focused on that negative aspect, it tends to pull you down into a kind of a place where you are not going to actually go out into the world and find people to make and develop connections with. So from that perspective, you almost will keep yourself in a cycle of loneliness because you believe that it's all about, that's just, I don't have it. That thought pattern kind of becomes all consuming, and it becomes a task of breaking out of that thought pattern and breaking out of that kind of, because it kind of becomes quite a comfort zone, breaking out of that comfort zone and exploring the world and meeting new people, which can be quite scary. And so yeah, you get stuck in that fantasy of, if only I could have that and that and that with this person and or that person. And the solution to this is, first of all, stopping those thoughts of, I don't have this, I can't have it, I can't meet anyone. Those kind of negative self-talk sentences that we will repeat and cycle through over and over and over again. It's kind of, it becomes a mantra. So stopping those thoughts is step number one. So getting out of that negative cycle.
So for example, if I have already created this experience of loneliness and I'm then thinking like, I will probably always be alone, or maybe I will never find anyone. So what you're saying is that I would then want to, when that thought comes up, say, no, I'm not going to go there, because now I'm going into that cycle again. Is that how you mean?
Yeah, exactly. The reality is that when we have been participating in these kind of cycles, we know exactly where these thoughts are going to go. We know, okay, as soon as I start with that thought, it's going to lead to the next one and the next one, and then I'm just going to feel like crap. So it's, you know what's down that road, you know where that road goes, so you can make the choice to not go there. You can take a deep breath, let it go, and basically not accept that thought to exist within you. And I mean, that is a process in itself. It's not like it's going to happen overnight. It's not like stopping it once is the solution and it'll never ever come back. This is something that you will have programmed into yourself over years and years and years. It's something that will take time and practice and the willingness to follow through with your choice to stop. No matter what, if it takes a day or a week or a month or a year or 10 years, to keep on saying, no, this is not how I want to live, this is not what I want to accept within myself. And another interesting aspect of the specific thought of I can't do it is that there is no rule book, there is no guideline as to how to do these things, how to form connections with people, how to go out into the world. No one really knows how to do it. It's something that you actually have to practice. You have to go and test for yourself and really explore. I mean, like I said, there's no guidebook to this. You have to go to the places where you are meeting the people that you would like in your life. And I mean, sometimes you meet good people, sometimes you don't, and you just got to keep on going until you've met the people that you would like to have in your life. Yeah, you have to create the change that you have to create the life and the connections that you want. And so some more specific support that you could follow is, like I mentioned, identify those thoughts that keep pulling you into that cycle. So know which thoughts are triggering those cycles. Also get to know what triggers the thought. So if you see a couple, does that trigger the thought of, I wish I had that, or I'll never have that, or I'll always be alone? Or if you watch a movie, does that trigger the thought? Know what are your triggers, and from that you can also know when to expect the thought to come up, because it becomes quite predictable in the end. You know, when you can actually see it quite objectively, you can see there's a pattern to it, there's a predictability. And a very useful and supportive tool within this process is to write those thoughts out, that you can see on paper in front of you exactly what's going on inside your mind. Because what we tend to do is we tend to keep all the thoughts inside our minds, and it becomes this big jumble of just stuff spinning around and around and around, and it becomes so difficult to sort through what's what, where did it come from, where's it going, how did this thought get there, you know, what's the nature of it. So once you start writing it down and looking at it from an objective perspective, then you can actually see the entirety of the pattern. And what's incredibly important within this process is to not judge yourself. Self-judgment is not a constructive thing, it is only destructive. So take the self-judgment out of the picture and make it objective and constructive for yourself. And then basically once you've gotten into working through those thoughts and stopping those thoughts, what you can do is create a new focus for your life, create a goal that you want to work towards, create a vision of what you would like your life to be, and work towards that. Yeah, I mean, you have to create it. So that's the aspect of self-sabotage. There is another one I would like to discuss, which is the point of projecting possible futures, which is basically fantasies or imagining what your life should or could be like. And the one aspect of this that's relevant to this particular topic is imagining the worst, imagining what if I'm going to be alone forever, what if I never find the person I'm meant to be with, what if I never find someone who will love me, what if I never find someone I'm capable of loving. These projections or imaginations or visions of the future are generally coming from a place of fear. The key word that gives that away is what if. What if is pretty much always, you know, if you say it, there's fear involved in there somewhere.
So,
sorry,
yeah. Can I ask a question? So what would you say is the difference between doing that, like where you're sitting and you're thinking and oh my God, and no, and then actually what you were saying before with creating a vision for yourself of what it is you want to create?
What's the difference?
Yeah. So is it that, like, for example, that the one is more like it kind of happens to you and then you're just drifting along, and the other one would more be like a self-empowerment in a way?
Yes, absolutely. What happens is when you get stuck with those negative thoughts are going to be coming up inside of you more from a point of pre-programming, which is coming from your childhood, from your family impulsing things on you, and from society and from movies and whatever. It's stuff that's kind of, it's put into you without your real knowledge or awareness that that's happening to you. And that's why when it's happening, it feels like you don't have control over it, that it's happening to you. It's the stuff going on inside you, and you don't know what's really happening, and you're just kind of following the line of thought and, let's say, getting swept up in it. Versus creating your life and, shall I say, creating your thoughts to be constructive and to be in alignment with the life you want to have, is an act of self-will. It's an act of self-action. You have to be the one to move yourself, to actively create that discipline to create that life for yourself. I mean, it's not just going to happen. You have to really create it. And in a way, it is hard work, but it's absolutely worth it, because then you become the director of your life. You become the true creator of your life. And that's something that's not very common in this world, but it should be.
So would you say that what happens? So would you say that what happens when you do the negative projections, that it's kind of the same process, but in reverse, that also becomes who you are, and what consequences can that have on your life?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, getting stuck in the experience of those negative thoughts and projections will eventually, I mean, if you allow it to, it becomes then who you are. You then start, everything about your life becomes that point of whatever, of I can't, or I won't, or I will never, or what if. And you start living your life from that starting point, and you kind of carry that belief around with you, and that belief kind of touches everything that you do in your life. So when you meet someone new, you're thinking to yourself, this person's not going to become my friend or become my partner because I can't, or because I'm always going to be alone. And that leads to a point of, once again, of self-sabotage, where you will actually, not intentionally, but subconsciously, you destroy whatever chances you may have had. You miss the opportunities that come by. And
So then it's like,
yeah.
then you start thinking they're probably gonna leave me anyway, you know, because I know people, a lot of people have said this, so I'm gonna leave them now because they're probably gonna leave me anyway. So that's basically how you destroy
Exactly.
every relationship. So what can we do if we find ourselves in this position of having created all these fears? What can we do about it?
Well, the support is quite similar to the previous point. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to make a list of those fears. You're going to make a list of all of those thoughts that bring that fear up inside of you. So the what if thoughts, the the I can't, whatever. You're going to make a list of that, and you're going to make a list of all the potential horrible scenarios that may happen to you, all the things that you specifically fear. So like those possible futures that evoke a sense of dread within you. Say lying in a sick bed alone and there's no one there, and you're suffering, you're in pain, you feel alone, you feel scared. So if that's a fear for you, write it down, and be specific and include the details. Make sure that you are being thorough in your self-investigation, because that's essentially what you're doing. You're investigating your thoughts and your patterns. And what you do next is you imagine yourself in that future, and it's almost like you have to do it from a sense of awareness, from a place of looking at, okay, when I'm here in this sick bed and I'm dying and I'm alone, what am I experiencing? What fears am I having? What thoughts am I having? And again, make a list of all of those thoughts and fears and any other emotions, anything else that's coming up, and make peace with them. One effective tool is self-forgiveness. Forgive yourself for living with that fear, for living with that dread, for carrying it around with you. And remember to be objective about your investigation. Don't do it within a point of self-judgment. And what's important is to come from a point of understanding, from a desire to understand how how these fears came to exist within you. Because once you understand why you fear it and why you're experiencing those thoughts and those emotions, it becomes so much easier to let it go, because you can see that it's not a part of who you are. Not really. It's just something that you've learned from some other event in your past, and you can support yourself more effectively once you are in that point of understanding yourself.
Right.
And again, you wanna identify the specific thoughts that you tend to go into, those patterns, those cycles that you go through, and flag them out for yourself so that you know, okay, this thought started, which I know is going to lead to that one and that one. So that you know, at that first thought, you stop. Don't let it go to number 2 and number 3 and number 100, because the longer it goes on, the harder it becomes to stop. So flag those points for yourself, and and kind of get an idea of what's actually going on inside you when you're going into these cycles, so that you can see what emotions are involved, what fears are involved, and kind of deconstruct the entire thing for yourself so that you can understand it better. And basically, it's a long process of self-introspection and objective self-awareness, and then a lot of breathing and just letting go and forgiving yourself, and choosing a different way forward.
So what about the point of desire? We've talked about that in previous Hangouts. How does that fit into this experience of loneliness and the fear of being alone?
Well, what we have discussed in previous Hangouts was the point of how desire creates separation, because the very nature of desire, when you desire a relationship, for example, it's generally not that you desire a relationship, you're desiring specific experiences and specific images that you believe make up a relationship. So companionship, family, children, the image of a happy housewife, whatever it is. And by desiring those things and being consumed by that desire, you've actually created a point of separation within yourself, where, like I mentioned earlier, it becomes a point of, I don't have that. I don't have those things. I am not that which I want to be. And once again, you are living your life from that starting point. So that's where the loneliness comes in. It's, I do not have that relationship and those things that come in the relationship. I am lacking that. And then living your life according to that belief, and that starts a cycle of self-sabotage, where you then you simply essentially destroy the opportunities that you have. And yeah.
But so you were talking about before these beliefs that there are things that we should do, that we should get a family or we should have a partner. Is that something you see that influences us a lot to have the experience of loneliness? I mean, I remember, for example, that I've seen previously in my life, you look out on the street and it looks like everyone else has a partner, for example. Or it looks like everyone else has already gotten into a relationship, depending on where you are. Maybe when you're a teenager, or for others it might be later in life. So how is it that affects us?
That will be coming from the point of what you've learned that your life should be like. So it's quite interesting. Say, for example, after you leave school and you're on Facebook, you start looking up all your old schoolmates, and they've all started having families and they're married and whatever. And your thoughts then turn to, I haven't done that yet. What's wrong with me?
Yeah.
Why haven't I reached that point in my life? There must be something wrong with me. As well as things like the movies that, as you said earlier, I mean, there's so much in this world that projects this image of these perfect fantasy lives of that people have. And when you're thinking that that's what life is about, the reality of life crashes down pretty hard when things don't go that way. And I mean, it becomes difficult for people to handle that. And even the simple thing of seeing a couple that looks happy, in reality, you don't know what they've been through or if they're actually happy. I mean, the reality is that most people don't actually show what they're really experiencing in their lives or with the people in their lives. And what comes from this is that everyone is wearing a facade, everyone is wearing a mask in this world, and we're at the point now where we want to remove the mask and really fulfill ourselves and get to a point of being happy with yourself, whether you're alone or not, and not being triggered by every image you see to have some kind of thought or emotion or whatever, so that we are really the directors of our lives. Am I answering your question?
Yes, definitely. And I was looking at this earlier in my life. I was introduced to the belief that there is a soulmate or a twin flame. And I literally believed that there is only one person in this entire world that I will fit with, like that I will click with, like two pieces of an egg, or whatever image you want to use. And I mean, just imagining that from a practical perspective, there are 6 billion people on Earth. So how the hell am I supposed to find this person, not these people, because there's only one? And then, it becomes that everyone else is just flawed. Nothing can ever be like this. Like if I was, and then I think it's also fueled by that many of us might know one couple that seems to have this, this special magic, that it seems like they were made for each other. But what we often don't realize is all the other dimensions that goes into that, that it's not just necessarily that they're meant for each other, but maybe they spend 10 years working on their communication, and that's why they're such a good couple together. So I would say that we really become delusional from all these beliefs and all these ideas about what relationships are supposed to be, that comes from our environment. But then I was also looking at, Cerise, what about people that don't necessarily want a relationship, or that might lead different kinds of lives? How do they fit into all of this?
Well, I mean, there are people who are absolutely satisfied with being alone, and I mean, that's okay. There's the point is that there's no right or wrong when it comes to this. When it comes to how you live, there's no should or shouldn't. It's about living the way that you like, and in a way that benefits everyone around you. So obviously you don't want to be someone who abuses other people. You want to benefit the world. Anyway, so let's say that these people who are happy to be alone, it is rather unusual, but I mean, it happens. And the question of whether they're going to find a partner to be with becomes more of a practical one. It becomes one where it's not about, I want to have this life that I imagine is the life for me. It's about I'd like to have someone to spend time with in the evenings. I'd like to have someone to share my life with and to support me, and whom I can support in return. So, there may be practical reasons. And
So could you basically say that it's
when
also,
you're
sorry, it's the lag. I was just looking at that. Would you say that it's more about like grounding the point, where right now it's like up in heaven, in this imaginary sphere above our heads, where it's not really concrete, and so it's actually about bringing the point of being in a relationship back to earth, so to speak.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely that. I mean, exactly as you say, it's about getting out of that fantasy and living in the real world, and taking practical things into consideration, and within that, considering also what it is that you do enjoy in life and what you would like to create for yourself. And if you're in the position of wanting to make a choice of either I want to be in a relationship, there's something that I would like for myself, versus I would like to be alone. I have no particular, being in a relationship is not something that I would like. What's important is to make sure that that choice is not based on, it's not based on some other hidden facet going on there in the background where, for example, say if you don't want to be in a relationship, it's because your parents had a bad relationship, and because you grew up with this horrible relationship in front of your eyes the whole time, now you've made the choice to never ever be in a relationship no matter what. I mean, that is not a supportive starting point to make a choice from. When you're making a choice of this magnitude, consider first of all that you may change your mind in the future. I mean, just because you make the choice doesn't mean that you can't in 5 years or 10 years or whenever decide, it's time to change. But make sure that there's nothing driving driving the choice. Sorry, there's no force behind it. There's no memories that are coming up within you, and no thoughts that are saying things like, I don't want to have the experience my parents had, for example, or I think that, maybe something like, I think that the fairy tale life is something that's silly and I am just not going to do it. I refuse. Things like that. Make sure that your choice is coming from a point of self-expression, to say.
Cerise,
And
are you ready for? We have 2 comments. Do you want to take them now?
sure.
Okay. So we got a comment from Marsana, and she's saying, "Hello, ladies. Just want to say hello and thank you for taking the time and sharing the points on this subject." And we got another comment from Julio, who says, "Thanks, Anna and Cerise." And I just want to remind the viewers that we're still open for questions. If you have any questions about loneliness or about feeling alone, now's the time to put it in, because we are almost at the point of wrapping this hangout up. Okay. Sorry for the interruptions, Cerise. Go ahead.
I think that maybe the closing point that I'd like to discuss is the point of your starting point for finding someone to develop a relationship with. So it's not about finding the perfect partner. It's not about finding the one, like you said, or twin flames or soulmates. It's about finding someone who has the potential to become the perfect partner for you, to put it that way. Finding someone who will at least be willing to make peace with who you are, and who you would be willing to make peace with who they are. So say if there's some things that you don't agree on, you must at least be willing to be at peace with those things, and not have those things be a source of conflict within the relationship. because I mean, in reality, no one agrees completely with everyone else, with every single thing. So I mean, that is a practical consideration to make. It's something that you need to be willing to face, and aware that you're going to face it. You're going to meet people that you're not going to agree with every single thing on. And I mean, sometimes you get lucky and you find someone who is interested in the way that you live, for example. So say you live by a set of certain principles, and you meet someone who sees the value in those principles and chooses to share them with you. First of all, it's important that you not entertain any hopes or expectations of how this may play out, because it may go well and it may not go well, and you need to make peace with either outcome, or any outcome really in this path, that whether things are going well or whether this person makes mistakes or whatever, you need to be able to, and be willing to rather, to support them unconditionally, within boundaries, of course. You know, when it comes to abuse, emotional or any other kind of abuse, there are limits that you need to draw the line at. But anyway, so just because you meet someone who is interested in those principles and starts walking that path with you, doesn't mean that they're going to stay with you or with those principles forever. So that is another possibility that you need to either make peace with, or at least consider that it will happen, or that it may happen. Sorry. And the reality is that that splitting, that parting of ways, if someone chooses to not share your principles anymore, that may lead to the end of a relationship. That is entirely possible. And don't despair. Take a deep breath and create the life you want. Once again, I mean, that's going to take time to find that which you want.
Yeah, I would also say that, it's not something that you can control anyway. I mean, we all know marriages where people have promised each other forever and ever, and, it still ends, or the person could die, So I would say that always when going into a relationship, that possibility is always there. So it's about then being able to walk it unconditionally for what it is here. So, Cerise,
is there anything else that you want to cover?
yes, you've said previously that we need to make peace with all possible outcomes. Can you expand a little bit more on what you mean by that?
Well, the reality is that not everyone is going to find the person or people they'd like to have in their lives. And that is an outcome that you need to make peace with. So when you see yourself being in that position of being alone at any point in your life, that projection shouldn't elicit any kind of fear or dread or any kind of emotional reaction. You should still be who you are. You should remain stable within that point. It shouldn't change who you are, because the reality is, whether you're in a relationship or whether you're not in a relationship, it doesn't change who you are. Or it doesn't have to. You can still live how you want to, and you can develop that self-support for yourself. So if you are in the position of not finding someone, develop your relationship with yourself, and create some peace and contentedness with being alone. Obviously, don't give up hope that you'll never find someone. Yeah, you go, Anna.
No, but I was just gonna say, do that even if you are in a relationship. Create a
Yeah,
relationship with
yeah,
yourself and be at peace with yourself, because that's the whole, like, the issue is that we think that it's the relationship is supposed to do that for us, but it doesn't, like you said, it doesn't make a difference in that regard whether you're in a relationship or not. You still have to live with yourself. Like, you're the only person you will never be able to divorce from. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. Well, let me just think if there's anything else that I want to say on this topic. I suppose the one last point here is that uh, a lot of people attach meaning to developing relationships, and that your meaning in life is to get married and have children and live on and create a legacy, or whatever it is. And meaning doesn't or the meaning in life doesn't depend on whether you're in a relationship or not. You create your own meaning for your life, and making it dependent on being in a relationship or having this particular or fulfilling this particular fantasy that you've created is when you're kind of setting yourself up for disappointment, because I mean things don't always work out that way. We don't live a fantasy life. There is no knight in shining armor. We have to be practical and consider what's actually real in this world and how things really work and how to develop a real relationship. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I would also say in that context that it's, this point of creating a relationship with ourselves. Once we do that and we're content with ourselves, because a lot of times I think it's also about actually trying to run away from ourselves. And so the experience of loneliness can even be a loneliness of not being with ourselves. Even though we are with ourselves all the time, we kind of try and escape into relationships or try and better ourselves through relationships. And so once we begin making peace with ourselves, the point of creating relationships with others will be so much more enjoyable. Cerise, here, just before we finish, we have one question here from Lena, and she's asking, if people say that they do not want a relationship and thus rather stay alone, do you know if they react to the stereotype in their mind, or are they reacting to the physical relationship? So this was referring back to what you were talking about before, where you were saying that if you have that experience that you don't want a relationship, that you have to be wary of, what the reason is for that.
That is going to depend, it's going to be different from person to person. I mean, each person will have different motivations, and it's up to each person to assess for themselves what their own personal motivations and influences are in the choices they make. Unfortunately, we can't see into someone else's minds and thoughts and see exactly what's going on in there to be able to say what the starting point of their choice is. I mean, it comes down to you have to do it for yourself and no one else can do it for you. So I can't really answer that question because it will be different for each person. I mean,
yeah, I will
it
add
may be
that,
one for one and another.
Sorry, it's this lag. It's a bad timing. No, I was just gonna say that whenever there is a reaction, whether it is reacting to something in your own mind or reacting to something in the physical, it always comes from the past. It always comes from some memory or some belief or some, whatever it is, that is coming up. So that is what we can work with. But exactly as you're saying, Cerise, no one can be self-honest for you but yourself. Like, you're the only one that really knows yourself to that extent.
Yeah.
So let's leave it at that.
I hope we've answered your question.
Yeah, I hope we've answered your question as well. So, Cerise, do we have a topic yet for the next hangout?
Let me take a look. Open up my document here.
And thanks for your question, Lena, by the way.
Actually, no, I haven't looked at the next topic. Do you have any idea?
Well, basically, what we can share with the viewers is that what we have been discussing, Cerisa and I, in terms of this entire series of relationship success support, is to kind of start by providing support in relation to that, like everything that comes before we even go into relationships, of which, for example, loneliness would be one of the experiences that can propel us into going into relationships, so that when we actually do go into relationships, that we can begin, that we're clear, that we're doing it, like you were saying, to support ourselves, that it's not just based on desires, or even that if it is, that we then support ourselves through the tools that Cerise has mentioned today. So I will say that we continue that process, and if you're watching this and you do have any specific topics that you'd like us to bring up, or that you see would be a cool continuation to this topic of loneliness, you're more than welcome to send us an email at desteniprocess@gmail.com, or put a comment here on the YouTube video, and we'll definitely bring that up as we continue this series. So, Cerise, thank you so much for being here yet again.
I was just looking at one of the topics, that we could do is a point of family or social expectations as one of the reasons for wanting to be in a relationship. So that's something that we could do next time.
Yes. And
another topic we will eventually touch on is the desire for sex, which can also be a pretty big one. But yeah, but I think what we're going to do is the expectations, the family and social expectations.
Yes,
and what were you going to say?
Sorry, I was going to say, in relation to that, what could also be very cool to bring up is like this point of choosing a partner. That in terms of what type of partner you should have, or will your family approve of them, and like that process of selecting and deselecting based on families and values and social standards and hierarchies. That could be quite interesting to talk about as well.
Yeah, I agree. I'm going to add it to my list right now.
Perfect. All right, so we have a few comments here at the end of the Hangout, Lena saying, yes, thanks, ladies, for sharing. And Jan is saying, thank you, ladies.
Okay, cool.
And Diane is saying hi. So hi, Diane. And this marks the end of this Hangout in our series of relationship success support. We will be back in exactly 1 month, and we will continue this point of social expectations and family expectations and these belief systems that comes up in our process of going into relationships. If you do have any questions already in relation to that, definitely send us a mail or put a comment here, and we'll bring that into the preparation of that Hangout. As always, please remember to thumbs up and vote up this video so that more can have a chance to watch it and be supported. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Thank you so much, Cerise. We'll be back next week, next month, and next week.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks, Anna.
Bye.
Bye.